From Wall Street to Main Street, this is Lalate.
It's a big evening of evenings Lalate with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2022. With breaking news about that $80,000 of checks now live and the big developing details of sixth stimulus. We'll go over the latest details for Germany and France and what they said to Putin today and why this lines up the sixth stimulus package, big money internationally, domestically, and also at a state level. Then we're looking at the big money of the Build Back Better Act going to the finish line with those incredible checks up to $15,000 to $80,000 across the board. We'll be looking at Vladimir Putin's advances against Odessa tonight and what this means for the oil shortage internationally, what it means for getting new oil dug and delivered out of Texas, and what it means for the wheat and grain industry back in the States. As a new concern, as the banking industry could be having major exposures to those Russian bonds and equities, and that exposure could send them into an economic downturn. We'll be looking at the price of gasoline at the pump and why the recessionary concerns are growing by the numbers, with not just gasoline, wheat, corn, and also soybeans. And then what you need to know about the pivot. Has the White House made the pivot to get gasoline from Venezuela or Iraq? And what is happening with the showing up those domestic alliances and international alliances to get those sums of money lined up? And if the wheat industry is disrupted by Vladimir Putin, what does this mean for our economy? Are we heading into recession? We're going to go over the big money with the CR for stimulus major developing details overnight, and also the SS300, Jay Powell with that major meeting just a few days away. New interest rate indication and new inflation numbers released this week, but what do they mean for you? I'll go over that analysis as well. Then, what's happening with the Build Back Better Act and why it's going to the finish line and why millions of viewers are getting big checks this week and will get them next week as well. It's a big night with a lot of money from the shores of Santa Monica to the shores of the Black Sea. From the East Coast to the West Coast, it's America's most watched show in prime time for financial news, and it starts right now as Evenings LA Weekend Edition gets underway, March 12th, 2022. And good evening, everybody. I hope you're having a beautiful evening across the board. The situation unfolding very dramatically. Recession, inflation, world events, sixth stimulus, third stimulus, fourth stimulus, all at the same time. And all in tonight's recording, lots of money and lots of major movements. Wheat, grain, soybeans, corn, and oil all impacting your price at the pump and impacting where this economy is going. Also impacting, of course, your stimulus. We'll go over all those details tonight in a big evening's broadcast. It's the weekend edition for March 12th, 2022. But first, we're going to start with the Build Back Better Act that has those fourth stimulus checks in there and also has that add-on. And we're going to look at that add-on of checks in just a second. That add-on of check is already paying out those $80,000. It's this map. It's coming up in just a second, this recording. Stay with me. But first, let's start with the real meat and potatoes of the Build Back Better Act. That is 3 clusters of checks and 3 add-ons coming from the Senate. The House has already passed this. And those checks pay a lot of money. How much do they pay? Upwards of $15,000 to $80,000 across the board. We're going to go over all those incredible checks one at a time. Right now in prime time, let's look at them. About $15,000 to $80,000 for you. And what is in there? 3 clusters, 3 add-ons. Let's go over each of them one at a time, starting with the first cluster right now. Hazard pay got in there for my essential workers. 1 more year for the earned income tax credit. $4,000 of elder care got in there. $3,600 for the children got in there as well. They got in there the Pell Grant $550 check, the $12,500 for the purchase of a new electric vehicle, and then the nutrition got in there, and also the incredible home repairs if you live in a low-income community. That is the first of three clusters of checks in the Build Back Better Act. The first add-on comes from the shores of Santa Monica, California, and Southern California. Our legislator got it in there. It's Maxine Waters doing, and she got in there free money for the buying of your first home. Wow, how much? A little bit less than $25,000 that will be given to the seller in your name at the time of escrow. It's huge. Got it in there. At the time of escrow, when you're about to close, there would be money given for the federal government in your name to the seller, about a little bit less than $25,000. That is the first of three add-ons. The second cluster checks, home repairs and paid leave. These home repairs are to weatherize your home, like fire, hurricane, and natural disasters. Then the paid leave is a lot of money. What is it? $75,000 less, single individual. Then what would you get? Let's go over the details. If you make about $70,000 or more per year, $1,700 a week. $35,000 annual salary, then $800 a week. $35,000 annual salary, then $400 a week. 4 to 6 weeks per year, W-2, 1099, you all get it. If you don't work but your son or daughter does work, they'll get the check. And that is deliciousness, 4 to 6 weeks per year, and that is paid leave. The second cluster, there you go. That second add-on, even bigger and bolder, comes from Bob Casey. A little bit less than $250 billion of free home health care got in there via Bob Casey. Now let's turn to that third cluster checks, more checks across the board, including, yes, our seniors checks. They got in that third cluster, free internet for all checks. Already law under second stimulus. Reach out to the volunteers to get that free internet right tonight. But they also have in there money for the farmers, independent contractors, the money for more nutrition, and then the seniors on the house. They got in there the Medicaid gap fix and also the hearing checks. On the Senate side, dental, vision, and lowering the eligibility age of Medicare from 65 to 55, which is par for the course when we're talking about adding checks to this incredible Build Back Better Act. The other checks they'd add is, yes, MSC. MSC is a body of checks where they come out from IRS on a monthly basis, and these are checks on top of the checks already in the Build Back Better Act. Who would get them? The eligibility would be the same as a third. Single individual, $75,000 less, you get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you get it, but it double it. Family of four, quadruple it. And if you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, or railroad benefits, you get it as well. It is not income. It's not taxable. It comes out on a nationwide basis. It's not state stimulus. And it goes off the most recent tax return. So if you had a direct deposit on that tax return, that's how you get paid. Otherwise, in the mail. It is also paid to adult dependents, $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter for up to 6 months. This is MSC, a body of checks to be added to the fourth stimulus recon. The Build Back Better Act, already passed in the House. And in new comments by the President of the United States, he assures the American people it's going to get passed. With a new interview with Heather Cox Richardson, Joe Biden says, if you want to reduce the burden on people who are struggling to pay for gasoline, pass Build Back Better. It has that expansion. If you want to get people off of child poverty, pass Build Back Better. The President of the United States addressing Build Back Better during the State of the Union address, saying it's going to pass. And guess what? Everything that Joe Biden has said since the State of the Union, he's doing. I'll have more about his State of the Union address from last week later in this recording. But there is a Build Back Better Act, fourth stimulus recon. Now, fourth stimulus recon also has, or Build Back Better Act, an add-on. What I call fourth stimulus add-on. And the only difference with this one, folks, is it's live. Yes, it's live. Let's look at the incredible map at issue for this Build Back Better Act add-on. It's here. There you go. Do you see money? I see money. I see lots of it. $80,000 of stimulus checks have now gone live across the United States in every single state for what is a fourth stimulus add-on. This is a homeowner's grant that went live first to each and all this channel. And I'm going to show you how to get these incredible sums of money. It is a live program. Unlike Build Back Better Act, which is not a law yet, this is law. Unlike BBB that has not paid out, this has already started to pay out. And unlike BBB, which you cannot apply for, you can apply for this. And viewers have, and they have gotten to be paid out. More about that in just a second. But first, let's turn to the breaking developing details of that CR. Very confusing. Let's explain what has happened. A continuing resolution got passed and became law this week. That continuing resolution is to fund the federal government, usually. But in 2020, I came up with the idea of putting a stimulus check into the CR. We made history. Then, in the last few weeks, we've advocated for more stimulus to be included in there. So what happened? They got stimulus in there, but not federal stimulus, county stimulus. Really surprising. It's as though the legislators were watching this channel. They got county stimulus in the continuing resolution that became a law this last week. That CR funds the federal government through to September of this year. To learn about the county stimulus, reach out to your county or watch your county news. But we're not done there yet, because this is where it gets interesting. Joe Biden had asked for certain items to be included in the CR, and they were not included against his request. So what is the President of the United States doing? This week, he will be going back with another piece of legislation. Don't know what I'm going to call it on this channel, CR add-on, something like that, but this will be another piece of legislation. And that will be because Joe Biden didn't get his COVID money in there. So we'll be asking for that and potentially more. And what can we ask in there as well? A stimulus check. This is the opportunity to continue to advocate, because there will be another round at the pony horse with another CR, not to fund the federal government the normal way you see it, but in a different way. Very fluid across the board. Meantime, SS 300 getting major breaking news going into the weekend, and the major breaking news is that the inflationary rate may be higher than initially thought. Joe Biden needs to make that phone call and swap out COLA for inflation, and if he does, then your benefits go up $200 a month, starting right now, a lifetime. It's huge. But if he waits, when are we in jeopardy of locking in this higher inflationary number? Let's go over the analysis of it, starting right now. SS 200, SS 300 was a JoeBiden.com presidential platform to swap out COLA for inflation. You want to swap out COLA for inflation when inflation's at its highest price point, which is now, not when it's lower, which is later this year. So when are we in jeopardy of getting a lower swap out rate? Not in March, not in April. I'll give you the analysis in just a second. The question mark is the big May 2022. Let's go over the analysis right now. The way your benefits work, if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security Railroad benefits, is you're tied to a benchmark. That benchmark is assessed every December. The current benchmark is COLA. Doesn't work. Nor does Joe Biden or Liz Warren think. They want to swap it out for inflation, but they haven't done it yet. You want them to do it right now. Why? Because inflation is at its highest price point of a generation. Before it comes down. Who's bringing it down? Jay Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve. Now let's go over the analysis. If the swap up happened today, your benefits go up about $200 a month. Lifetime, not just right now. Because once your benefits go up, they never go down. Later this year, if inflation comes down lower, you'll still get a raise up of your benefits a little bit more. 4% inflation, about $100 more. That's about $300 a lifetime. So Joe Biden needs to make the swap out from COLA to inflation right now. Now, we are okay in the month of March. Are we okay in the month of April? Yes, let me tell you why. Jay Powell, your head of the Federal Reserve, will be raising interest rates at that March FOMC meeting, says Powell, a quarter basis point. And by raising that quarter basis point of interest rates to bring down inflation, Jay Powell will not be bringing down inflation in the month of March because of that move. It takes about a month for it to circle through the system. It would impact the economy by about April. But how much? Not a lot. So the good news is that even with a quarter basis point in March, Jay Powell ain't going to ruin your opportunity to get that SS 300. Then what about May? This is where it gets a little bit more problematic. In the month of May, Jay Powell is looking at Vladimir Putin's situation. Jay Powell's looking at the European Central Bank, which this week on Thursday said Christine Lagarde, who is Jay Powell's counterpart, said that the economies of the world economic markets of Europe are too robust at the moment, and inflation is actually a little bit higher than people think. So she came in with a more aggressive policy. Will Jay Powell do the same? He would if he follows her policy suggestions. But here's what's happening. On Thursday, the consumer price index number came in, and it showed us for the month of January, inflation tracked at 7.9%. I got it right on the money. My prediction was 8%. So we're so far good. What happened on Friday? On Friday, a big surprise. as a 10-year Treasury note surged 1 basis point to 2.016%, and then the 30-year Treasury bond inverted. Why is this happening, and why did it move this way? The reason why the bond market on Friday moved substantially higher after the inflationary numbers on Thursday is that bond analysts now believe that inflation may be higher for the month of February or March than we initially thought. Tanos Papadopoulos, founder and chief investment officer at ABF Capital Invest, says the inflation is here to stay, meaning that inflation may be not going down this month, but stagnant or going a little bit higher. And this may signal why Jay Powell may come in more aggressively in that FOMC meeting of April. That is why if Jay Powell comes in more aggressively in April, then your SSI, SSDI swap out from COLA to inflation needs to happen before May. Remember, it takes a month for Jay Powell's moves to, in fact, impact the market and impact inflation. So, Joe Biden, when does he need to make that swap from COLA to inflation? At the moment, he needs to make that swap between now and the month of May. If Joe Biden does it after May, then we get a little bit concerned that you're not locking in that higher inflation rate, because by then it may have come down to 5% because of Jay Powell's pivot. Meantime, what do you need to know about the incredible, surprising, developing details of oil, gas, and wheat? They're causing a big trouble, and that big trouble is teeing up another stimulus package. That other stimulus package is called 6 Stimulus. If you're new to this channel, let me explain to you how the numbering system on here works. When you hear me refer to first, fourth, fifth stimulus package, they are not sequential. They're not in order. Does not mean you have to finish one before you go to another. In this recording, you're going to see coming up in just a second, $80,000 of checks are now live under fourth stimulus. At the same time, that third stimulus is paid out, and will stay live at the same time that 6 stimulus is about to go live. 6th, 4th, and 3rd all at the same time. Here's something else you need to know, new tonight on Evenings LA, is that the packages are often for different purposes. First and second stimulus packages were for COVID. Third was basically coming out of COVID. Fourth is coming out of COVID. And 6th is because of Putin. So it has nothing to do with COVID. It has to do with the energy situation and wheat and also potentially the banking industry. The good news is that you can get multiple items from multiple packages at the same time if you're generally with that zone of income qualification. $75,000 less, a single individual, married couple, $150,000 less is generally the same eligibility. And guess what? When we get to that big map coming up in the second half, it's the same eligibility again. Yeah, notice when we were talking about Build Back Better Act and those MSCs, guess what? Same eligibility for this map. When we talk about third stimulus later in this video, same eligibility for third stimulus. And when we talk about 6th stimulus, it's likely to be the same eligibility for 6th stimulus as well. So while the eligibility items change, the ability for you to get the same amount of money at the same time, really much the same way. In the second half of this video, we'll be looking at the breaking news out of France and Germany as they spoke to Putin today. What did those leaders say, and why is this huge for your money back in the United States? We'll be looking at the wheat industry and why the acts of aggression this weekend, especially against Odessa and the Black Sea region, like the area west of Gershon, will be watched attunedly by myself and others, because this is where crop disruption may occur by Vladimir Putin. And if crop disruption occurs, we, as consumers of bread and grain and corn in the United States, may see Vladimir Putin impacting our economy for years to come. That's why 6 stimulus is needed. It's coming up later in this video. Then, breaking news as West Texas oil may not be the solution for the energy situation domestically. Why not? It's an analysis you haven't heard before, and you're only going to hear on Evenings LA. Then, is the White House getting those strategic alliances ready to get our partner countries off of Russian oil and onto something else? All the latest details tonight, folks, and guess what? It's not good news. We'll be looking at whether the situation for Venezuela oil is lined up, Iraq oil is ready, or Iranian oil is ready, or whether none of those events are ready, and whether Vladimir Putin could overnight turn off Germany's oil. It's a big second half with those $80,000 of checks for the shores of Santa Monica, California. We're just getting started. But first, here's a little bit about the community page. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. As America's most watched show in primetime, Evenings LA goes into the second half. Here's first a little bit about the community page. See you back from Santa Monica in 60 seconds from now. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join Lalate Daily for the excitement of the new Lalate live daily. The excitement starts on mornings Lalate at 9 a.m. Home Lalate returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons Lalate at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on Lalate. And the excitement continues right now in the big second half of Evenings LA, direct from Santa Monica, California, with the developing details of 6/3 and those $80,000 of forced stimulus checks needed as a potential recession is on the horizon and the inflationary concerns growing out across the board. We'll have more of this analysis in the second half of this video, but first we're going to go into those incredible $80,000 of checks. Let's look at the map right now. This is the fourth stimulus add-on. The fourth stimulus add-on has $80,000 of checks for you. And have you gotten it? Viewers have started to get the money because as Purple Hawks, we pounce before anyone else. This is called the Homeowners Grant. It is law. Build Back Better Act, not law, but this is law. Let's go over what it is. We're going to go over the checks. We're going to go over how to get them. We're going to go over what they're for. And then we're going to go over the overlap across the board. When you're looking at this map, you may see a particular color. Don't worry, I'm going to go over the colors with that are delineated on the map in just a second with you. The map is part of a big program announced by the White House no less than 2 weeks ago. On a particular Friday, 2 weeks ago, the White House dropped a major announcement. The only difference was no one covered it except me. $80,000 of checks going live, and it's law. This is the Homeowners Grant. To get it, let's go over the details of it right now. First, if you own a home and you got a third stimulus check, you qualify for this, and it's everywhere in the United States. Single individual, $75,000 less, that's the income qualification. Married couple, $150,000 less, that's the income qualification as well. Own a home, and within that income qualification, you can get this money. Yes, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits. In that income zone, you can get this money as well. If you own a home, now if you don't own a home, stay with me later in this video. I have money for you for renters as well. I got you all covered. This is the Homeowners Grant, administered by the federal government and announced by Joe Biden last 2 Fridays ago. When he announced it, it was nowhere covered except here. Not on broadcast, not on print, not anywhere across the financial channels. This is why this show is the #1 most watched show in prime time for financial news. That Friday night, I immediately put it into the membership newsletter for members, which comes out Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That night, members started applying. That following Monday, I told viewers of this channel, it's now paying out in some states already. What is the latest details on this? Let's go over the details first, what this money is for, and then let's go over the application process. The money is for items that many viewers have asked for coverage for a very long time and never had it until now. Homeowners assistance, property taxes, homeowners association fees, utilities, mortgage, home repairs. Now remember, you can get home repairs from the nonprofits featured late in this video. But this is absolutely incredible. Average payout, $15,000 to $80,000 per household. Remember, that's per household. So if the household has 4 people, you don't double it. It's per household, $15,000 to $80,000. It is offered in every single state of the United States, which brings us then to the map. Before I show the map, I want to take a step down memory lane. Day 1 of this channel was April 25th, 2020. From the shores of Hermosa Beach during a lockdown, I pressed record and I said, it's April 25th. In 3 days from now, a program called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance for Unemployment Assistance is about to go live. But here's what's happening today on the 25th. The applications are in pre-acceptance mode. You can get your application live on file today, the 25th, because when it goes live on the 28th, sometime thereafter you get paid. What happened? The viewers on day 1 of this channel understood on the 25th to apply for a program that was in pre-authorization. And guess what happened on the 28th? They woke up on the 28th and they had cash in their bank account. Yes, states of California, like California, Missouri, paid out on the 28th when their applications portals were open on the 25th. Here's what also happened. People who waited to apply on the 28th, that time, never got paid till almost a month or 2 months later. So this is why you want to pounce, Purple Hawks, that's the expression of the channel, to get that application on file tonight. It's a website. Websites are open 24 hours a day. And let's go over the details of it right now with that map. The map has colors on it. Let me tell you what the map colors mean. In the case of teal, the teal represents that the state has opened a pre-authorization and is paying out. So California, they'll take your application and they're already paying today. Florida, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, same thing. They'll take your application now, they'll receive your application, and they're also paying out right now. Ohio, Mississippi, South Carolina, Colorado. What does that mean, that pink color? The pink color means that they are in pre-authorization. They'll take your application now, but they won't pay today. They'll pay sometime thereafter. 2 nights ago, someone sent me a beautiful message on Instagram saying, Ohio doesn't help anyone. It's pink, that means there's no money. I said, no, the pink means they want your application now. They'll pay you when the computer system goes live to the payout. On Home LA today at 11 a.m. live on air, one viewer said, South Carolina, there's no money in South Carolina for this. No, the pink means they're taking your application now and they'll pay you thereafter. Now, it's important to get your application on file right away. It's first come, first serve. There's not unlimited funds, number 1. Number 2, the faster you get your application on file, the faster you get paid, because with all these programs, they ramp up based upon a computer system, and the computer system pays based upon who got the application on file first. So people who got an application on file in California last week are getting paid before people who got the application on file this week. And when you're days behind someone else, you could be months behind and getting paid. This is why you need to get and move across the board. Viewers overnight have asked a series of questions. But what if my house is, and what if my house is that? Just get the application on file. When you become a member, you get the link to go right into the application, get it on file. Don't worry about these issues like what type of mobile home you have. It'll all be addressed by your state. So how do you apply? Let's go over the details of it right now. The way you apply is very simple. If you're a member, I have it all lined up for you. Members get that membership newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. and has a link for you to go right in to apply. At the top of the membership newsletter, it has the name of the program, it has the website link, and then routes you to all the respective websites in the respective states. Then it has the amount of money, the income qualifications, what the money can be used for, everything you need to know to get this big money. It's the benefit of being a member because the members get that application on file faster, because I've been featuring this now on this channel for over a week. Become a member today. The link is under the video, and get the incredible membership newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time via the YouTube alert system to get those $80,000 of checks and more. Also in the membership newsletter, third stimulus for rent and homeowners assistance. That's coming up later in this video. But let's turn to the surprising developing details of 6 stimulus. 6 stimulus got a major change overnight. And what is 6 stimulus? First, let's understand that, remember, we'll have multiple stimulus packages happen at the same time Third was for COVID. Fourth is to get back to normal after COVID. And 6 is Putin stimulus. Let's go over the details starting right now. 6 stimulus was first debuted on this channel March 8th, 2022 in prime time. It is Putin-caused stimulus. Why do you need stimulus? Because of energy, gasoline, wheat, grain, and the banking industry. But it's to alleviate economic pressure caused by Putin, not COVID, not coming out of COVID. What's the breaking news tonight? First, let's go over how we got to 6 stimulus so you understand what it is. 6 stimulus first manifests itself between allegiance between Germany, France, and the United States. Early in the first week of Vladimir Putin's invasion, the United States reached out to the partner allies and said, you need to get off of Russian products. And the partner allies said, we cannot, we're too dependent upon them. Then the White House said, no, it's a moral issue. You morally have to get off of those items. And then those partner allies said, you're right, we will get off those items. But the way that we'll get off those items, said Germany, for example, is we will debt spend. We will raise our national debt and then spend on our citizens so that our citizens have checks so that they can afford the rising price of gasoline and not send our economy into recession. That is how 6 stimulus started. Then it grew as then we understood that 6 stimulus is to alleviate other things besides oil that are impacted by Vladimir Putin, wheat, grain, and more. I'll go over more about that in a second. And now we know it's to deal with other items that Putin is impacting, like the banking industry. More about that in a second. So that is what 6 stimulus is about. What's the breaking news tonight? The breaking news tonight is that Germany and France, which is part of this trifecta for 6 stimulus, had their leaders reach out to Putin. Today, March 12th, 2022, the leaders of Germany and France spoke to Putin and asked for a ceasefire, asked for the end of the war. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron had a news conference and spoke with Putin directly and asked for an end of the war. Those who are in contact with the Russian leader also indicate that there may be a potential ceasefire. President Zelensky of Ukraine says that the negotiations today changed for a slight better tone. Those who are in contact with the Russian leader see that there's a need to speak up, and I believe there's a fundamental different approach today. Positive comments from Zelensky. But let's go back to what's happening with that trifecta. The trifecta involved Germany and France and the United States, all with progressive leaders at the moment, vowing to raise spending domestically and internationally because of Putin's involvement with Ukraine. Now, let's make this very clear. Number one, 6 stimulus will happen if Putin ends the war tomorrow. Because of the current situation, his impact on economic markets is long felt. That's number one. I want you to understand that 6 stimulus will happen if Putin was to end the war tomorrow, which is not happening. Number 2, 6 stimulus is a international, a national, and also a state approach. What do you need to know? 6 stimulus, when debuted on this channel on March 8th, was explained to you by me as Putin-caused stimulus, an oil situation. Within hours, the state governors across the United States, Republican and Democrats, said we need to have an oil stimulus domestically for our citizens of our state. So your state governors are already pivoting to do a state-based stimulus, which we call state-based 6 stimulus. That is when they talk about oil. Let me give you an example. One governor says we're going to remove the tax on gasoline at the pump, which reduces it from $5 to $1 a gallon. That is how they're all pivoting on a statewide basis. I don't have time to cover state stimulus on this channel, but I want you to understand that there will be state 6 stimulus. That's a tongue twister. State 6 stimulus, and also U.S. 6 stimulus, and also international 6 stimulus. Yes, you've never seen anything in the history of this channel like this. This is a magnitude of enormous proportions. Let me tell you why it's needed. The reason why it's needed is the R word, recession. Why are we fearing a recession? We're fearing a recession because energy prices currently are not sustainable. Let me go over what the situation is on energy tonight. The situation on energy tonight is that the current price of gasoline is not sustainable into the month of May. If we see the current prices for gasoline into the month of May, we're heading into recession. And that energy situation would send us into a tailspin. Where is the situation on gasoline tonight? The gasoline prices are actually a little bit up since Friday night. More about that in a second. So that is why 6 stimulus is needed, because the current gasoline prices are not sustainable through the month of May. We go into recession. Step number one. Step number two, there is a concern about the commodities like wheat and grain, which I'm going to go over in a second, that would potentially send us into a recession unless someone gives us a fix right now. Translation? The harm to the commodities market has already been done by Vladimir Putin. That's what Ukraine, Russia, the United States, Germany, and France all see. Putin's already negatively impacted our commodities markets for potentially years to come because of Ukraine. More about that in a second. And finally, the banking industry. The biggest concern across the board is that the banking industry may be sending us into a tailspin, and I'll have more about that in a second. So this is why 6 stimulus is heating up, to offset a potential looming recession. All right, let's go over the analysis right now on what you need to know with this. First, I want to go over each of these items one at a time. And I want you to know that if I tell you there's a solution to the item, it doesn't mean that 6 stimulus is not happening. Let me give you an example. We'll start first with oil and gas. I'm going to tell you where the solution is with oil and gas. If the solution is done, it doesn't mean you're not getting 6 stimulus, because we still have problems with another commodity and also the banking industry. We have a lot of problems, and that's why 6 stimulus needs to be done. Problem number one for 6 stimulus, oil. This is where most people understand that 6 stimulus is oil problems caused by Putin. What's that out of control? Energy crisis. The price of gasoline surging day in, day out. And this is because of Vladimir Putin's oil. Russian oil accounts for a lot of the exports of oil internationally and has drawn up prices. How does this work? Very simple. The less oil, the higher the price. Why is there less oil? Because Russian oil is being taken out of the equation. Number one, it's being taken out of the equation domestically because producers or importers of Russian oil have now removed Russian oil, like Shell. Number two, it's being taken out because insurance companies will now insure the delivery of Russian oil. Number three, it's being taken out because countries are now trying to ban Russian oil. In the United States, the situation is moving a little bit slower than anyone thought. We thought there would have been a ban of Russian oil, 3% of our economy by now at the time of recording. That hasn't happened, but it will happen. The bigger issue is that there also will be a ban of Russian oil for our partner allies, like France and Germany, where it amounts to 30-40% of their gasoline. So with Russian oil going away, then the price is going up. Where's Brent crude tonight? Brent crude continues to rise. 334 was the futures on Friday, up 3%, and the price of the particular oils is well growing dramatically. Let's go over the numbers right now. Brent crude is up to 205 at the time of tonight's recording, and the price of gasoline at the pump is up domestically. AAA shows it at $4.33 a gallon. That's the nationwide average at the time of tonight's recording of Evenings Lalate for March 12th. This is because there's less Russian oil. So where do we solve the potential situation? We have to increase production domestically and also internationally. And let's go over the analysis starting right now. First, we have to increase production of gasoline domestically to offset the 3% removed from our economy. So where would the domestic production come from, and how does it get done? It gets done by reaching out to West Texas and increasing their production. But the White House hasn't done this pivot. Let's go over the analysis starting right now. Gasoline production in Texas is Texans for Americans. But they have, since day one of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, reached out to the White House and asked for guidance should they ramp up production. They have not gotten that guidance from the White House. And they've been very vocal. They have gone to press and saying, you know what? The White House has not told us to increase production, so we have not increased production. What happened this week? Jennifer Granholm, the Energy Secretary on Joe Biden, made a pivot and said the White House is happy to increase production. Let's be very clear with that verb tense or adverb. Happy does not mean there's instruction to increase it. So immediately the Texas oil producers on Friday said, good, the White House wants to increase it, but they haven't told us to do that. Let's say that again. At the time of tonight's recording, Texas oil producers have not been instructed by the White House to increase the price, to increase production of gasoline. This is a failure by the administration because it's a simple fix domestically right across the board. Now, here's a new part of the twist tonight. And that part of the twist is that you think that all the gasoline in Texas is ready to go into our gasoline stations. Not the case, says some analysts tonight. Some analysts say tonight that the gasoline in West Texas is not refinery ready for the pump, and that the gasoline around the Gulf is ready. So that means that some gasoline would be ready to go right into our pumps and some would not. The quote is fascinating across the board. What is at issue? Josh Rhodes, a energy analyst, gives us the comment. And what does he say? We simply do produce a lot of oil domestically, but because we do doesn't mean we can actually refine it. A lot of refineries in around the Gulf of Texas are built for lower quality crude, and that's the lower quality crude that goes into the pumps that can replace the Middle East, Russia, or Canada. And then it's actually harder to bring the value of the crude from West Texas, higher quality, down to be ready for the pump. So it's a little bit more problematic. The White House doing none of this. White House not getting West Texas or Gulf producers to increase production, and not getting lined up any of this. Since October of 2020, I had detailed to viewers of this channel that there's 100,000 Russian troops at the Ukrainian border. I knew it was going to be the major economic story of 2020. Two, I told the viewership of this channel. The White House knew it. They told Treasury, be ready to do energy analysis and do energy analysis in October 2021. But with now week 3 of the Russian invasion at hand, the White House has still not increased production in West Texas or Gulf of Texas. Really troubling across the board. More troubling tonight is the situation unfolding in Germany and France. Their gasoline is 40% from Russia. And with 40% of the gasoline from Russia, what are they doing? They have vowed to remove Russian gasoline from part of their equation for moral consideration, but they don't have a backup lined up. What is the backup on the gasoline situation tonight? Let's go over the details of it one at a time. First, is a potential Iranian providing of gasoline going to work? No. Iran talks are on hold, says UBS analyst Giovanni Stovuno. So the potential to get that gasoline from Iran routed to our partner allies by getting a nuclear deal done is not happening. That report is that the deal is not working. So Iran is out of the equation. That's number one. Number two, is the United Arab Emirates working? No. United Arab Emirates has been part of rumor mongers in several days, but they are not increasing production. They are part of the equation. I teach them on day one of this channel. When Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, I said, go to UAE and increase production. U.S., reach out to UAE and get them to release some barrels. White House has done it. And what has OPEC and UAE said? They're not increasing production. So nowhere in the White House administration have they negotiated with UAE to increase production. Nowhere have they gotten Iraq to increase production. Nowhere have they gotten Iran to agree to a nuclear deal. So what is left for the equation? Venezuela. Venezuela is the number one exporter of oil, but it's also one of the major sanctioned countries of the U.S. government. So is the U.S. government wishing to remove sanctions to get Venezuela oil into our pipe, into distribution for our partner allies? And what about Iraq and Iran? What about Germany? The situation is very troubling because guess what? When we talk about Germany having a lack of oil, if Russia oil is removed by Germany, we forget there's another part of the equation. Vladimir Putin. Putin has vowed to cut off Germany's oil himself. He has said, don't anger me, I'll just turn off the oil myself. Imagine if you wake up one evening on Evenings Lalate and are told by me that there's suddenly no Russian oil for Germany. You can say that R word as large as you want to say it, recession. Because we cannot have a partner ally suddenly have no oil because Vladimir Putin turned it off. That is part of the equation, and none of this has been assessed by the White House. The White House should have had a deal to increase production domestically far before the Putin invasion. There's still no deal tonight. The White House should have had a deal for partner allies to get gasoline from somewhere else. There's still no deal tonight. And the White House should have had a deal to ramp up production domestically of the very basics of something we eat all the time, bread. The White House could use its abilities of executive order to increase grain production, wheat, corn among our farmers. Farmers would love to get more stimulus from the federal government, increase production. Why is this such a simple fix you're hearing for the first time tonight on Evenings LA? Let me explain to you the analysis and why this is simple economics, and it makes you wonder who is on this economic council with Brian Deasy out of Yale. Wheat prices are surging out of control. You go to the market tonight and buy some bread, you'll notice it's more expensive than a week ago. Why? Because much of the bread, wheat, grain, soybean, corn of the Middle East is imported from Ukraine. It's tendered on the Black Sea, the beautiful area of Odessa and neighboring towns. Those farmers can't harvest the wheat today. They're defending their country. So because they're defending their country, the wheat is not available. And because of that, the domestic wheat you buy here is worth more money because there's less to compete against internationally. And with that, prices at the supermarket going up, wheat going up, corn going up. This is a major problem. And the problem is that it's not going to be 1 month or 2 months. It could be for years to come. When you talk about the case of wheat in Ukraine, the harvesting is not happening. Instead, they're defending their country. And guess what? The tending the soil and preparing for next season, not happening. So next season's crops will be lost. And the season after that could be ruined because they've been cluster bombing all those crop zones. Yes, this is a very long-term problem. The White House has a simple fix for this again. A simple fix is to use the Wartime Acts or similar provisions and give money to our farmers. Give money to our farmers who would love more money from the federal government to increase production of our wheat and grain and soybean in the United States. Let me make clear why this has to be done. Not that I'm asking to advocate for it, it has to be done. Wheat and grain prices cannot continue to surge higher. Again, if they do, it's not sustainable. And if they continue to stay at those levels for 8 weeks, we go into recession. We can go into recession because of oil, and we can also go into recession because of wheat. I understand that maybe the White House doesn't want to do too much oil production because it's very climate conscious. But, are we low carb conscious? I don't want to joke about it, but why aren't we increasing production of wheat? Because we're low carb conscious? What is going on here? Increase production of wheat domestically to bring down the price of wheat. This is simple. This is simple economics, and you don't understand what the White House is doing, and you wonder why some of the Democratic leadership is not saying, Joe, pick up the phone and call Farmer John and tell him to increase production of wheat. This is not Republican versus Democrat. This is not farmer versus scarecrow. Or is it? Very, very confusing why something so simple has not been done. And then I'm going to turn to the part of the equation that I'm most scared about tonight. It is the banking industry. The banking industry has exposure, folks, and the exposure you and I don't know. And because we don't know, I'm scared. U.S. banks have investments in Russian bonds and Russian equities. Their exposure, how much they have invested in, you don't know. I don't know, and we won't know until potentially Q2, Q3, Q4 corporate earnings are announced by those banks, publicly traded companies. And then we're going to see what could happen. What's at issue? They're going to have to announce major losses. Those investments are part of the equation that no one knows. U.S. banks have had Russian investments in bonds and equities. Why is this a problem? Because those bonds and equities are about to become valueless. They didn't buy it for zero, they bought it for a value. And they're about to become zero because the Russian economy is going from number 10 and the largest in the world to the next Cuba. The bonds are about to become valueless, junk bond. And guess what happens? When U.S. corporations that are banks announce their corporate earnings for the second, third, and fourth quarter this year, they're going to say, oh, by the way, we have a $500 million write-off, a loss, because we had investment in a Russian bond. By the way, we have a $500,000 write-off because we had $500,000 investment in a Russian stock. Why is this important for you? Because you do business with banks, you go to your local bank, and if your local bank did business with a big bank that had major investments in the banking industry, get ready for something you haven't seen for a long time. I take it back to the last days of George Bush Jr.'s administration. The first few days of the Obama-Biden administration. You remember what it was. The banking industry implosion. You do not want the banking industry to go under because of Vladimir Putin, because they had exposure to Russian bonds and debt and equities. At the time of tonight's recording, no one on Wall Street really knows this risk. No one in the White House knows this risk. And this is a risk that would send us into a tailspin. Yes, a recession. Tonight in tonight's recording, you see that it's not just gasoline that is the reason for six stimulus. It is not just wheat and grain that is the reason for six stimulus. It is also the issue of the banking industry. Six stimulus is absolutely happening. Has to happen. Because we already know that the economic disruption from Vladimir Putin is not 1 week, not 1 month. If there's a ceasefire tomorrow, the economic destruction could happen for months or years to come. How big will it be? This coming week, we will see what will unfold. We will see first if the United States finally gives the instruction to Texas oil producers to increase production, number one. Number two, if the White House finally gets allegiances with United Arab Emirates or Venezuela or Iran or Iraq to increase production of gasoline. Number three, if the United States reaches out to the farmers and tells them to increase production domestically of wheat and grain to bring down those prices across the board. Number four, if Jay Powell says any comments in reflecting on those comments by the ECB central bank this week, then inflation may be higher. We have a lot coming up this week, folks, and boy, we're just getting started. Tonight, you want to get started on that big application. But go into this video right now, become a member, and get that membership newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Get that application on file to get those $80,000 of checks, number one. Number two, get third stimulus. Have you gotten third stimulus? Oh, you haven't? Let's go over that third stimulus right now. Third stimulus pays for your rent, utilities, and mortgage assistance. So yes, you can get third and also fourth. It is for renters and also for our big individuals who are homeowners. So let's go over the details of this big money right now. Where do you get it and what do you need to know? Let's go over the details. You are going to reach out to 6 places: your city hall, your city housing authority, your county hall, and your county housing authority. And the keywords you're going to say are rent assistance because of COVID, mortgage or utility assistance because of COVID. 3 things you must do. You must reach out to all 6 places. Number 1. Number 2, you must get multiple applications to file. And number 3, you must do multiple rounds. Lean on those nonprofits because those nonprofits really pay well for this money. They also do home repairs. Get that membership newsletter open, apply today, and get on file your applications. Lean on those nonprofits and don't wait because this is real money and it's available right today. And the average viewer of this channel has gotten $45,000 from this money. Get that big money today across the board. Average viewer of this channel has gotten $45,000. Don't wait at all. When we look at the situation tonight, it's growing by the money and growing by the dollars. I'm so excited for viewers of this channel. Since last night, what have been the success stories? Let's go on them right now. Last night, we had one viewer, Simba, who says, "Hey, Lalate, I watched you in primetime last night, and I turned around and I helped my friend get $5,900 for rent." So Simba, watching last night, turned around and got her friend $5,900. The night before, on the Friday evenings, Lalate, Carol Moore revealed because she was watching Evenings Lalate in primetime, she got $4,000 for City Housing Authority and $1,000 for electric. Melly Pinn on Thursday got $9,000 for rent assistance by watching Evenings Lalate in primetime. What happened earlier this week? Earlier this week, we had Bob Bacon get money as well. We had Nisi get another round. She got $30,000 in 2021. She got about another $10,000 the last few days. And then we had big store stories where people got this third stimulus for a year. Bill Garaciti earlier this week got 1 year of rent by watching Evenings Lalate in prime time. This is why you want to tune in Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. No, that's why you want to tune in Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's nightly. It's every single night, Monday through Friday, for America's most watched show in prime time. Big money across the board. To recap, let's go over everything you need to know. Number 1, the Build Back Better Act will pass, says Joe Biden, and that has $15,000 to $60,000 of checks. Number 1. Number 2, A continuing resolution became law this week, and that continuing resolution has county stimulus in there, to everyone's surprise. But Joe Biden coming back next week with another piece of legislation for COVID that could potentially have a stimulus check in there as well. We'll advocate as soon as we see what Joe's move is on that front. SS 300 getting good news going into the weekend as inflation may be tracking higher. Oh boy. The inflationary numbers on Thursday, 8%. The numbers on Friday showing the bond yields going higher. Bond traders believing that inflation is actually trending the same way or higher this month. Fascinating twist of events. Then, when we look at the Build Back Better Act, not law, but already law, those incredible $80,000 of checks. If you remember this channel, open that membership newsletter, it sends you right into the application. 6 stimulus heating up tonight as the leaders of France and Germany not yet getting an oil solution, not yet getting a wheat or grain solution, not yet knowing what the banking industry potential exposure is, but Germany and France reaching out to Putin to get him to lay down arms. He did not agree to whatsoever. And so with that, France and Germany looking to do the biggest social spending of a generation. It's 6 stimulus. And it's not first and second for COVID. It's Putin-caused stimulus. It's not just for oil. It's also for wheat, whose disruption will be at issue for years to come. Meantime, domestically, Joe Biden has the ability to increase wheat production. He has the ability to increase oil production, and has the ability to get those partner allies off of Russian oil. That hasn't happened yet, and the question mark is this next week, what will happen with UAE, Venezuela, Iraq, and Iran? Very fluid situation across the board. The continuation continues all throughout the night with our prayers and thoughts with the families in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin still advancing closer to the capital city and still circling around Odessa, has not yet taken it. Tonight on I Stand With Ukraine, we'll look more at the situation on the battleground and the humanitarian situation as well. For now, stay informed, stay focused. Join us nightly at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, as Evenings LA returns with the latest details on your money, America's most watched show in prime time. Stay informed, stay focused, have a beautiful evening, and stay with Evenings LA for more.